The negative sentiment around the South African economy and South African markets is not misplaced. The South African economy has been stuttering and in places stumbling for the better part of a decade. And it's really only under Ramaphosa's administration that there is a reason, I guess, for fresh optimism, references to a new dawn. There's ambitious policy proposals. But by and large, if you take the headline economic numbers and put them up against sentiment, the sentiment might be overdone, but it's not entirely misplaced. I would venture that that's a slightly different sort of observational comment to, well, should South Africans then be exiting the country with their capital? And this is in no way sort of against South Africa or unpatriotic. But if you lived on Mars and you asked how much money should I allocate to South Africa as a Martian, South Africa contributes less than 0.5% to world GDP. So if your portfolio was to be allocated on the basis of economy contribution to world economy, about 50 cents in every 100 rand should be allocated to South Africa. There should be being a judgment, and you have to put that up against your personal circumstances. Where are your school fees? Where's your debt? Where you're going to retire? But if you adopt a Martian perspective, global asset allocation suggests about 0.5% to South Africa. The concern with index funds or passives is that allocation of capital to them is happening in a mindless way, that people are being seduced really by two ideas. The one is, I'll get the index, and I will get the index at very low cost, which means I will beat most investment managers in a very, very low cost way. What's missing from that allocation to the index is, well, how much am I paying for those assets? And do those assets fit into my portfolio? Do they have a place, as opposed to what I would call naive, or perhaps, to be a little bit blunt, mindless allocation to index funds? So if there is a thoughtful application to index funds, one part of that process has to say, well, are the assets inside of that fund expensive? If they are, you've got a bubble in the making. There's lots of evidence from investment records that show one of the damaging practices or behaviors of the investment industry or investors is to be busy inside of portfolios. Very often, turning portfolios or changing investments gives you a sense that you are doing something, and that doing something is going to have a good result. The evidence suggests that much of that doing is misplaced, and that we land up very often being busy at our own expense. What we need to be careful, though, of in sort of advocating be quiet, is you want to be quiet in an asset if it is an appropriate place to be invested. So is the asset strong? Does it have the ability to sustain a performance? It might be mispriced, and that mispricing is disappointing, so it looks at as if it behaves as investment underperformance. But if that is mispricing, not the asset class, then you want to stay with the asset class. You want to be patient.